Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm going to start with the Olympics. I thought it was done kind of covering it, but there's stuff that happened that was just so effed up. And it's a indication of the whole, it's a barometer of the fall of civilization. And, well, let's start off here. Somebody wrote this comment. Wow, I forgot you existed. You've been shadow banned for years, resubbed. And so, again, there's this window of opportunity where YouTube has not shadow banned me as much for whatever reason. Um, it comes and goes. Of course, I had these conversations with these chatbots who denied that YouTube does it, and then they stopped doing it for a little bit, at least, not as bad as before. And so people can bookmark my channel because I'll be making content for this foreseeable future, and we'll see what happens. Like, at least for the end of this year, election year, January, I thought I would revisit what needs to be done here. But right now, we're on the upswing. Subscribe, resubscribe, comment, like videos, do whatever you need to do to let YouTube know that you still want to see content from my channel. Whatever it is, there's a membership program, these things, right? So to start off with, let me show you this one clip. This happened last night. So I was watching volleyball, the men's American volleyball team. And I was telling my wife this story. I played basketball, but sometimes I play volleyball like on the beach or the backyard with my friends. And volleyball is a fun game, and similar to basketball, the guy who invented volleyball, there's some controversy that the guy Naismith who invented basketball was actually somebody else who invented volleyball as well. But I played volleyball recreationally, not as much as basketball. But I've watched volleyball in the Olympics, on and off for so many years. And I was telling my wife that I worked years ago when I was in college. I used to open up a building, and I worked as a janitor there. I would open up a town hall in Connecticut, and my brother got me this job. I get up at like 5 in the morning. Oftentimes I was drinking and partying the night before, so it was kind of difficult, not always that easy. And I'd get up at 5 in the morning and I'd go to this town building, and I had the keys to the whole building. And I'd open up all the doors, make sure the doors were open. Then I'd go to the Parks and Rec department, and I'd do some minor cleaning there because it wasn't used that much. I would do the gym floor every once in a while, like use the whatever it was, right, vacuum the hallways. And my brother had a relationship with the Parks and Rec department people. There was one guy I played basketball with, and he was, one of the people who worked in the Parks and Rec department of the city. And he said, I need you to referee volleyball. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to do that, right? And he said, well, like I have nobody else, so there's not very many people know how to do it. And if it was $45 like every Wednesday, I would go and open up this gym, and you sit on this chair that's like it's wider at the bottom and it narrows to the top. You had to climb up, and you were above the net. You had to put two fingers or put your hand on the net to feel if anybody hit the net, because you had to feel whether someone hit the net or not. And you were watching for numerous things, including carries, them carrying the ball when they set the ball. You can't prolong a touch. You can't catch the ball, right? And other things, right? And I couldn't do it. Like, it was impossible. Like, I'm not good at that. One time I was a ref at some summer camp, and I was horrible at refereeing basketball, and I knew the rules, right? Like, a carry is very hard. It's a quick thing to judge. And, I would stop watching the game. I forget I was reffing. And there was a team that was Polish. Like, they mostly were, Polish people. They were like screaming at me in Polish, and everyone was mad at me all the time, these volleyball people. And so I said, I brought the teams in. I said, look, I don't know how to referee freaking volleyball. If I don't come here and open up the gym for you, you guys don't have a league. This is how, they don't have a ref. Nobody knows how to referee volleyball, and they can't find anybody. And so, like, I don't need to do this. and I can quit, and you guys won't have a league. So you guys better figure this out because I'm not capable of doing it. I don't know how to do it. I'm not, I'll open the door for you guys, and you guys are gonna have to be like, do an honor system, and call the game yourself. Otherwise, you don't have a league. And that was that. So that's what happened. But anyways, so I was watching volleyball last night, and they've had these up close and personal moments with athletes, and they do a backstory to give you interest because you don't know about these people or care about them until every 4 years. But they've been doing a lot of these backstories on foreign people. Of course, they've done a lot on Ukrainian athletes for obvious reason, focusing on the war and promoting that. But there's been a lot of foreign athletes they've been doing like these, backstories on, which seemed weird because a lot of them are, not even going to win a medal, right? And it's like they're trying to be more international. I don't know. And they brought out Snoop Dogg, and Snoop Dogg's everywhere, and Snoop Dogg's just a piece of crap. He's like the biggest sellout of all time, and just he's just everywhere, right? But then they have this moment where they start talking about this volleyball player's tattoo, and let me show you the clip here.
Most meaningful tattoo is the one on his hand, which reads, "Existing is enough," which was a sentence that Taylor uttered the first time he allowed himself to let go and cry in a therapy session.
Are you serious? Right? And so this guy went to therapy, and he cries, right? And he says, existing is enough, and he decides to memorialize this profound moment. He finally let himself go and was able to cry in therapy. Now he has a tattoo that commemorates this epic event that everyone will look at and say, hey, what does this mean? And he can tell everybody, well, I just want to remember that moment when I finally broke down and allowed myself to cry in therapy, right? And so he's got this tattoo, which is effed up in itself, right? But then they decide to make it national news. I mean, so many people watching the Olympics, right? And NBC feels that this guy being able to let go and cry in therapy, be vulnerable, and just break down and cry, and then get a tattoo of it, right, is somehow newsworthy. And like nobody's embarrassed by this. Right? Our enemies are watching us, right? Like the weakness in our system. Plus, this guy went to a tattoo parlor and had someone tattoo this on his hand. And the tattoo artist probably said, oh, what does this mean? He said, well, it's the first sentence I uttered when I finally had the courage to let myself go and cry it there. And so this is the 2024 Olympics. But let's revisit this change in score with the 666 I covered in my last video, because it was much worse when we see it live, right? In terms of the presentation. So Jordan Childs got her score of 13,666. I've talked about how many times 666 has been brought up in the Olympics, and she earned 5th place, not a medal. She was in 5th. Of course, the number 5 is the amount of gymnasts they have, and also it's for a coven of a pentagram, the coven of a group of witches called a coven. America challenged the score. They have these routines, and the routines have value in terms of the degree of difficulty and the amount of, limits your routine limits the amount of points you can get in a score. The harder routine, the higher you could possibly score, right? And they felt like they had underestimated her routine. That's the official story. And they went complained to the Olympics, and they gave her an extra point, which put her in 3rd place, which knocked out this girl. And the other end of the spectrum, who proceeded to walk off the stage crying, right? So, because she had won the bronze, and then the Americans complained, and I don't know, she's from some country that's probably like, it looks like one of these Eastern European countries that probably hates America already. But the whole thing, the way it played out, and the 666, and just all of it. I mean, the Olympics was, from the very get-go, weird and like inappropriate and demonic and twisted, and just forcing all this liberal agenda on it, and then just throughout all of them, all the events, it's just something off about the whole thing, right? And like I said, the last Olympics, because things are going south quickly. And so let's get into the stuff with the election. Kamala Harris just picked an old white guy, which we'll get into in a moment. The governor of Minnesota, she decided not to go with Genocide Josh. But I want everyone to think about this, right? Let's say there was a meteor that was going to hit the United States, or going to hit dead center in America and bring about global catastrophe. And there's no way that we could do anything to prevent it. Like don't have the technology to stop the thing, right? And it was coming. We all knew it was coming. And there was an election. And it didn't matter which candidate you voted for, because neither one was going to stop it. But they were both claiming they could, right? They were both claiming not only they could stop it, they could make America somehow, into a better place, right? And that if the other person was elected, the meteor was definitely going to hit. But both of them are lying. The meteor is going to hit one way or another, right? And so it's meaningless who you vote for, because the person you're voting for, I guess the only thing that you could judge it on, who's better to navigate the country in a post-meteor type of situation. And both people are showing no evidence that they have any ability to deal with something like that, right? And so it doesn't really matter. The election doesn't matter, because that's what's happening. Either one isn't going to prevent the collapse, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen regardless of who's president. And really, you're picking it's a person that's presiding over this disaster. And they're going to be probably blamed for it or whatever, whatever happens. And so it's just a bad situation for everyone involved. Like there's absolutely zero reason to vote. Because aside from these two candidates being lowlifes, it doesn't, the outcome of the election isn't going to change a thing, right? Because the meteor is going to hit, and when it hits, everything's going to change, and who's president and any of these things is no longer going to matter to anybody. So I got a bunch of stuff to get to. I want to get to that RFK thing with the bear cub. But let's start first with Donald J. Trump's. So this is an interview with Donald J. Trump and a guy named Aiden Ross. I'm not sure who he is. He seems to be a YouTuber or something.
Elon.
Wow.
Shout out to Mr. Musk.
That's beautiful.
So Elon Musk gifted either Trump or this kid a custom Cybertruck.
Hey, that is beautiful.
Am I going to
This kid has a Donald J. Trump shirt here.
close the door really quick? Just I want to show him the wrap. Sure. Check out this wrap and let me know your honest thoughts.
I think it's incredible.
So they commemorated this fake thing again, right? And then Trump says this.
I think it's incredible.
It's incredible.
So you know what they did? AI. What Google did is they took, or they let it happen. See the Secret Service agents here?
Yeah.
They're angry in there.
They're angry. They're angry at this thing. They're mad. They're mad.
Put smiles on their face.
Right.
You heard about that?
Yeah, no.
That's just terrible.
Yeah, I know. But that's how easy it is to manipulate
It's
everything.
a little bit scary.
Yeah, it is. It's very scary.
It's so scary that they would be deceptive like that. And they would just smiles on their faces when they weren't really smiling. Just like they put blood on your ear when you didn't really get shot. Right? Like, it's just so fake. I mean, this is when Trump jumped the shark. And the Trumpers, Trump has done endless things to let the Trumpers know he's a piece of shit, right? And he's a liar and he's deceiving them. And he can't deliver. We already know what a Trump presidency looks like because we had a Trump presidency. But their inability to see reality when it's just slapping them in the face, right? Especially all these pseudo-truthers, that if this happened to Joe Biden, there'd be questions of the legitimacy. They'd be talking about how fake it is. And when Trump does it, and he comes out with nothing on his ear, and the bandage and all this stuff, and the exaggeration, and they're still pushing this shit out there, right?
We need like a system where we can quickly fact check things and see if it's real and authentic.
Yeah, that's what we do. We need that.
And right now they don't have that.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Like fact check this right here. Ask him about the ear. And maybe he did in the interview. That's a horrible picture of Trump. Like he looks like a monkey there. But look, fact check this right here. There's nothing here. He did not get shot in the ear. It's just obvious, should be obvious to everybody. The Band-Aid gate, the ketchup gate.
They don't. So I know we're not going to drive anywhere, but I was wondering if you wanted to like listen to like a song in here.
Let's go.
All right, cool. This is how you open it up.
It is incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. I'll get on the other side.
You got on either side, right? I don't know if you can get one of these yourself, but it's this. Do you say custom? Is it one of a kind?
Okay, Aiden.
So then, YouTube recommended this after I looked for that video.
Check out this rap and let me know your honest thoughts.
I think it's incredible.
Trump's big day with Aiden Ross.
I'll get on the other side.
Yeah, they can see it.
You got to watch. Got a Cybertruck and a watch. Big day for Trump.
Oh, I didn't know this. Now I know it's worth it.
There it is. Doing the Trump dance. They're pulling the string on the... That was it. The Trump dance was the reason I show you that. That's your guy. That's your guy. It's wonderful.
I was taking a group of people falconing up in Goshen, New York, up in the Hudson Valley. And I was supposed to meet them there at like maybe 8 or 9. I was driving up maybe, really early, like 7. And that woman in a van in front of me hit a bear and killed it.
Okay, so here he is with Roseanne Barr, who's a nightmare, right? Both two fake truthers that are pro-Israel. Now, I like that he's a falconer. Like, he trains falcons and he's, into nature. And that's one of the things that, for the brief time that I was, looking at possibly voting for him and supporting him, he has some cool stuff. So he does outdoor stuff, which, some of the stuff I do or some of the stuff that I think that he does is good. He's an environmentalist, and he's really into nature, and he's got old school skills. They can train falcons to do, some of these things. Like, I would never do that. Like, I don't, like that's rich guy, whatever. But he does other things, right?
A young bear. So I pulled over and I picked up the bear and put him in the back of my van because I was going to skin the bear. And it was...
Again, another good thing, right? Because, skinning animals, my daughter was trying to do this for a while. She was trying to learn how to do this. And, it's a skill, right? And animals die, and sometimes you hunt animals, whatever it is. And being able to retrieve their pelts is a good thing. They're just, and it's not allowing this thing go to waste. So I don't have a problem with any of this stuff, right? I think it's a good thing.
It was very good condition, and I was going to put the meat in my refrigerator. And you can do that in New York State. You can get a bear tag for a roadkill bear. And at the end...
And I'm not sure eating bear is the best thing, and eating roadkill. Now, my brother had a story. He was in upper state New York, and the Great Barrington, right close to Massachusetts. And he was, it's really country out there, and he said there was an animal flopping around the ground, and some guy stopped. He was going the other direction, and my brother stopped, and the guy jumped out of the car. He hit it with a club and then threw it in his trunk, and he drove by my brother and said, "You can get the next one." Roadkill, I mean, again, if it's something that's freshly killed, and again, not letting it go to, I'm not down on this, but, this doesn't play well when you're talking about eating roadkill, right? Like to the dopey people, the sanitized humanity, Americans. And so, like I'm happy this guy does this, and it's one of his better qualities. I mean, his bad thing is his position on Israel, and then his philandering and his neediness, right? But this story's now going south.
The dinner, it went late, and I realized I couldn't go home. I had to go to the airport, and the bear was in my car, and I didn't want to leave the bear in the car, because that would have been bad. But I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park, and we'll make it look like he got hit by a bike. It'd be funny for.
Which is kind of funny, but like this whole story could have been kept secret, right? Because it's not what the mainstream media is going to feast on something like this. Like roadkill bear. They're gonna eat this up like roadkill bear. And so he does something stupid, which is, I'm pretty sure putting the carcass in Central Park is not such a good idea. And he could have just thrown it. I mean, it could have been just thrown away because it's gonna, you only have a limited time to skin the bear. It has to be done, I think, within 24 hours or something like that. And certainly, the meat's going bad. And so throwing it away. You can put it in a hefty bag, and it just would be taken care of.
For people. So everybody thought that's a great idea. So we went and did that, and we thought it would be amusing for whoever found it or something. The New Yorker somehow found out about it, and they're going to do a big article on me, and that's one of the articles. So they asked me, the fact checker said, it's going to be a bad story. Right?
Yeah, it is.
I think it's a great story.
And so it is going to be a bad story. And this guy just can't help himself. So everyone's forgotten about this guy. Mainstream media isn't talking about this guy at all. But now they're talking about him. So then YouTube recommended this from Jen Psaki.
Okay. I mean, I've worked most of my adult life in political communications. I definitely understand the strategy of getting ahead of a story. Sometimes you just got to get
She just hasn't loosened up. Like, she just hasn't, she's not good at this. I don't know how she did the press secretary. I think the other girl's better at it than she is, but she's just so stiff.
News out. But yesterday, RFK Jr. proved that sometimes maybe just keep your mouth shut. I mean, we already know this is a guy who has found himself in the middle, he's put himself in the middle, by the way, of some unusual controversies, to put it diplomatically. Like, say, the strange allegation that he once ate a dog, which he says was really a goat.
It's a goat. So you definitely can tell it's a goat.
Or, even more bizarre, the claim he made that a worm ate part of his brain. But incredibly, RFK Jr. has now found a way to one-up himself in all of those stories. In a video that was apparently intended to blunt the impact of a negative news story that had not yet come out, Kennedy casually recounts to Roseanne Barr, of all people, I can't explain it, a wildly bizarre incident that took place 10 years ago. The story goes like this. So one day, while driving to Goshen, New York for a fun day of falconing with his friends.
So you see, they're mocking this, but these are actually good things, right? This is part of the degradation. Having skills, like having skills and being able to interact with nature, right? Like they look at, you're a falconer, you're a weirdo. Like you supported a guy who has Parkinson's, which you knew he had Parkinson's, and he was the president, and you covered up for him for years, which is a much worse thing, right? But,
Yes, that's fun, as one does. He came across the carcass of a black bear cub, which he says was hit by a minivan ahead of him.
Which he says was. What do you think? You think he killed it? Like, you think this is a conspiracy? You conspiracy theorist?
So, what did he decide to do? Well, I'm going to let him take it from here for a moment.
So I pulled over and I picked up the bear and put him in the back of my van because I was going to skin the bear. And it was very good condition, and I was going to put the meat in my refrigerator. And you can do that in New York State. You can get a bear tag for a roadkill bear.
He was going to skin the bear. Okay, anyway, the dead bear carcass.
So, these people who are just walking zombies waiting when the apocalypse hits, they have no skills, right? They have nothing, and they have no abilities to survive. These city-dwelling liberal people. I mean, some of the liberal people have skills, but not these city dwellers, most of them. And, you know, I mean, somebody who's a liberal would say, well, that's not wasting something, right? You're not wasting something. You're not killing a cow, you know, saving the amount of, you know, these things that they care about, right?
This is in his trunk. So he goes on to enjoy a day with the dead bear carcass in his trunk. He goes on for the day of falconing with his friends, obviously. And it was glorious, I'm sure. But
so you're like trying to mock this thing. But, you know, this is like just the weirdness that surrounds the Kennedys.
then, according to Kennedy, he realizes he's late for a dinner at Peter Luger Steakhouse in Brooklyn. So rather than go home, he drives, and you can see the map there, about an hour and a half with a dead baby bear in his trunk to Brooklyn for dinner at one of the most famous steakhouses in the country. Of course, the dinner goes late, as dinners often do. And Kennedy says he suddenly realized that he would need to go straight to the airport to catch a flight. So for anyone who's ever stashed a dead bear in the trunk of their car while having dinner, but needed to hop on a plane, the next steps may sound obvious.
Like she's trying to mock this, and you know, I mean, it's funny that the story's not a great story because of how degraded people are, right? Now, if this was years ago, you know, 60 years ago, I don't know, 100 years ago, this would not be an unusual story, right? People would regularly eat roadkill. And you know what? You'll be eating roadkill soon, MNFers. You know, like, roadkill's on the menu. You'll be happy to get roadkill, right? You'll be fighting rats or, you know, eating rats and stuff.
Obvious.
Somebody asked me to get rid of it. I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park and we'll make it look like he got hit by a bike. Funny for people. So everybody thought that's a great idea. So we went and did that, and we thought it would be amusing for whoever found it or something.
Everybody thought that's a great idea? Really?
Okay, you know, again, you ran a guy who had Parkinson's, who was obviously senile. And you did everything you could. You rigged at least the Democratic Party nomination process to put this guy in there. And so putting a dead bear in Central Park is not nearly as egregious of what you guys have done. And now you got Kamala Harris, who you nominated based in identity politics, based in her demographics. And she's a nightmare candidate, and you're going to have Trump again. Ha ha. But, you know, like, laugh it up about his thing, you know.
I mean, who might have questioned the decision-making on the dumping of a bear carcass after a day of falconry and fine dining at a steakhouse? But, of course, it turned out it wasn't such a great idea. No kidding. The mysterious dead bear in Central Park ended up being a huge national news story. After all, wild bears haven't been spotted in Manhattan in centuries. And here's the thing. The story Kennedy was trying to get ahead of by posting this strange video where I just want to note one more time Roseanne Barr randomly appears. That story came out this morning, and it didn't include nearly the level of granular detail that Kennedy himself provided. The bear incident actually takes up a total of 2 paragraphs in the story, but they did have a picture. And if you're wondering out there what the photo of RFK Jr. and the dead bear looks like, it looks exactly like what you're imagining, I think.
To me, this is great. I don't, you know, I mean, the thing is that this guy just can't, he just steps in it all the time. I don't know, this might even help him because at least they're talking about him instead of ignoring him.
I mean, like that.
So the New Yorker had this picture. Somehow somebody who was there at the event and had access to this picture ratted him out. Like if one of his friends, his family, because they're so pro Kamala Harris, right? I mean, that's the sad part. Why not report on how Biden wouldn't give Kennedy Secret Service protection? I mean, there's all these ketchup-based fake shootings going on, so that's a big deal. And also, why not talk about how they avoided Kennedy being a part of the Democratic nomination, the primary process, as they ran Joe Biden unopposed, only to have to put the guy out to pasture and get stuck with Kamala. So, I mean, this is a weird story, and especially for these times, but it's not that weird for what's coming, right?
This has been a weird presidential cycle with lots of weirdness. But RFK Jr. has managed to stand out. And there are some...
Not really stand out. You had a senile guy with Parkinson at his debate, and he completely shit on himself, right? So laugh it up, Psaki. Okay, so she picked a really old white guy. And, I think for obvious reasons.
A working class politician from a rural background, Minnesota's Tim Walz is known for not pulling punches.
This is not about the Second Amendment. This is about the safety of our children and our communities.
Boom, he doesn't pull punches.
A
He takes guns. He takes...
Described white dude for Kamala Harris. The popular
white dude for Kamala Harris. He's a white dude who likes Kamala Harris.
governor will now run alongside the nation's first woman of color atop a major party's ticket. Walz grew up in small-town Nebraska and joined the National Guard as a teenager.
Boom.
He'd served in the National Guard for more than 2 decades, eventually becoming a school teacher. After moving to Minnesota, he volunteered for John Kerry's presidential campaign, and in an upset, he was elected to Congress in 2006.
Boom. This is what happened in between, where he was a school teacher, and then all of a sudden he was considered a congressional candidate.
Walz served in Washington for the next 12 years, establishing himself as a moderate Democrat. Then he ran for governor in 2018, winning in a landslide.
The process of how we as a state and how we as a nation respond to these things is really important.
2020 would bring defining moments, the COVID pandemic and the killing of George Floyd, which triggered riots and criticism from Republicans over why it took Walz 3 days to call in the National Guard.
Decisions were made in a situation that is...
So they're going to feast on this. So they're going to make him a defund the police guy, right?
Is what it is, and I simply believe that we tried to do the best we can.
Walz's critics also point to a state audit report that found major failures by Minnesota's education department during the pandemic, allowing rampant misuse of a federal program meant to feed children.
If you commit fraud in Minnesota, you are going to be caught and you are going to go to prison.
Still, Walz has long had strong union support. The president of the United Auto Workers says he was among his top choices for...
So they're trying to replace, this is a Joe Biden. Like this guy's similar to Joe Biden. Coming, poor background, no malarkey type of guy. Looks like he's in his 70s. I mean, he's old as F. It's an old white guy, right? Like they say they want change in young people and they want people of color, but they're picking an old white guy, right? Like, I mean, it's just, like they talk something, they say some things, but they don't really mean them. It's just some old white guy that they're getting in there. And they had a chance to pick a Jewish guy, and they picked an old white guy. It was between a Jewish guy and an old white guy. They picked the old white guy. CNN.
Top of the hour and the breaking news.
Breaking news.
This is big in this.
It's big news. They picked an old white guy.
Unprecedented campaign this season, the likes of which we have never seen before. We have one more major development. Vice President Kamala Harris, the
picked an old white guy,
presumptive Democratic nominee now for President of the United States, has selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
Boom.
To be her running mate.
Kaboom! It's stunning. Does anybody check your pulses? Does anybody have a heart attack? Because this is stunning.
Week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe seen as a dark horse. Now he has emerged as the choice.
Not a dark horse, an old white guy. Not dark horse, old white guy.
Are MJ Lee, Jeff Zeleny, John King, Jamie Gangel all reporting on this. MJ just saying maybe Walz, a vibes pick, seen as a Midwestern happy warrior. John King is here with us in New York, watching this unfold before our
it's unfolding, John King.
eyes. Let's just start, reset at the top of the hour, what Tim Walz means for this ticket now.
It means, number one, the Democrats have their ticket. They're about to go into their convention, and after Kamala Harris clinched the nomination with the most unorthodox nominating process of our...
No votes. She received 0 votes and clinched the nomination. Yeah, that was very unorthodox and very undemocratic.
lifetime. The President of the United States steps aside after winning the primaries. She wins a virtual voting among the delegates, and then she wants to make this decision. She wants all this cleaned up before they get to Chicago for the convention, so that can all be about prosecuting the case against Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and against the Republicans.
She was a prosecutor, and she's going to prosecute that case.
So a very truncated process, a lot of pressure on the vice president. So if the voters out
Boom. There... Who else is here?
Clinic. It's the first time a sitting vice president has visited such a clinic, and I'm told that she walked away impressed by his demeanor, how he carried himself, and she liked him, but did not know much about him. And of course, at the time,
He's an old white guy. What else do you need to know?
This would have been unthinkable. Just 16 days ago, she was the running mate. She was not looking for her own running mate. So that is what...
It's crazy. Now it's just reversed itself.
...is remarkable about this. But really in the last...
It's totally remarkable. It's completely remarkable.
Really really remarkable and...
Remarkable. It's remarkable.
Extraordinary series
I just randomly went here. I didn't even plan this.
...of events that led us to this moment. It was 16 days ago that President Joe Biden dropped out.
Exactly, and now it's remarkable.
...of the 2024 race. And as you've been talking about, Vice President Harris was able to lock up this nomination so quickly.
It's incredible. It's remarkable. There's no other word for it.
So much so that there was not even at any point,
There was no any point.
A blip of a real conversation within the Democratic Party about whether they should consider anybody else other than Kamala Harris. And now we have not only Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, but within a matter of days, she has deliberated on and chosen the running mate of her choice. And it is now going to be...
She said that she was going to pick an old guy. And they said, what about an old white guy? And she said, yeah, I'll do that, just like Joe Biden did. And now they have the same old ticket with Joe Biden guy at the vice president, where he belongs, and Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, where she doesn't belong. It's all just working out. It's remarkable.
The Harris-Walz ticket running against the Trump-Vance ticket.
Exactly. Those are the tickets. A ticket to hell. A ticket on a bus going straight to hell.
We always end these conversations with the reality check that vice presidential picks rarely alter the outcome. How
exactly.
Would you view this? Would you view this in a different prism?
No, this is a do no harm pick. You know, it is interesting to me that over the weekend, Lester, there was a few progressive groups that had sort of different campaigns against different candidates she was considering. There was some labor groups not happy with Mark Kelly of Arizona. There were some other groups not happy with Josh Shapiro, including John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Josh Shapiro is a genocide Josh. You know that guy?
It's notable to me that perhaps may have mattered.
Totally matters, because she's so superficial. Look at this dude right here. Look at this old white dude here. He's the guy. He's good at being an old white dude. He's 60 years old. So we were both born in 1964. I look 20 years younger than this guy. You know, because I'm an old white dude too. I'm tan, and I don't look like this MNFer. So, you know, so there's that. Like, I can't believe this guy is 60. It's just, he's a couple months older than me. We probably graduated high school in the same year. And he looks like he's 70, so I got that going for me. There was a bunch of stuff I was about to get to, I already got to, in the video clip I already made. But then all this stuff came in about Kamala. She made this goofy statement about being woke, and I found this old interview, the whole interview, and it's great. So it's self-explanatory. So I'm going to push that stuff ahead here. I covered the VP a little bit more. Information's just dropping about him. And I'll cover more of that in my next video, too. We got more of that coming here. The whole thing's just a clusterfuck, and it's great. Classic Kamala. So in 2017, U.S. Senator Kamala Harris said this. Okay, so I got this whole thing. This is a very liberal panel, very feminist panel. And Kamala is at the centerpiece. This is right before she'd run for president and eventually become vice president. And it's classic Kamala. This gaffe is going around. Multiple people have sent this to me. but I went and found the whole conference. And I want to show you the whole conference because she says a lot of stuff here. And, you know, she's trying to run away from the liberal moniker, but she can't, right? But more importantly, she can't run away from the fact that she's just not likable. I mean, people are not predisposed to like her by the way that she behaves, not just by her things that she's done or the words that she says or her beliefs, just by the person she presents, right? She's one of those people that's just not very likable. She's off-putting. So I went to check the polls, you know, and this is what they're saying. Harris finally broke Trump. He's flailing, glitching, running scared. Trump fans furious over his coward decision on Kamala debate. That's not true. Harris says Trump's running scared. He floats debate with new rules moderators. Harris claimed Trump is running scared to Fox News after backing out of ABC debate. All these things, right? RNC chair says Donald Trump afraid of Kamala Harris. And that's just one of these many, you know, various storylines. They're all saying that Trump is running scared. And they're saying this because Kamala Harris is going to lose, right? Let's get into the vice president thing here, and I'll explain more in a second.
We're not afraid of weird people. We're a little bit creeped out, but we're not afraid.
It's not about her or her opponent, really. It's no matter what kind of weird stuff they keep saying.
Donald Trump has been resorting to some wild lies about my record, and some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
The new talking point.
It's a new talking point, right? Kamala Harris is weird. Donald Trump is also weird in different ways, but they're both weird. I mean, all these politicians are weird. Like, they're just all weird, right? They're not like normal people. Kamala Harris is eccentric. She's very, you know, she has a lot of gestures. She has a lot of body movement, a lot of hand movement, facial expressions, the weird cackle laugh, right? But they're trying to make this guy into some superstar. Let's get into it here. Let's start off with these clowns.
Tim Walz, he is the chair of the Democratic Governors Association and the co-chair of the DNC Rules Committee, which tomorrow...
Okay, so this does not look like 60 to me. This looks like 70, right? He looks like a 70-year-old dude. And he looks kind of like Joe Biden, right? Balding. I mean, he's bald. Joe Biden was covering up his bald. But, like, she's replaced Joe Biden with this guy who's a Joe Biden wannabe.
Tomorrow we'll set the dates for the nominating process. Thanks so much for being with us. Donnie Deutsch is with us on set in New York and has the first question. Donnie.
Governor, nice to chat with you. Minnesota, which for decades, of course, has gone very blue. All of a sudden, the Republicans think that it could be in play, that it could be a toss-up state. Obviously, the Democrats in tremendous transition over the last...
Okay, so I looked at the polls, and Kamala is losing in all the swing states, but Minnesota and either Wisconsin. I don't think it's not Wisconsin. I think it's Michigan. But the rest of the swing states, she's getting killed in Georgia. Florida is no longer even a swing state. Trump's winning by 10 in Florida. She's losing big in Pennsylvania and losing big in either Wisconsin or Michigan. And she's losing big in Ohio. Like some of these states that used to be swing states, she's losing. North Carolina, I think, is even. Or maybe Trump's leading a little bit in North Carolina, according to 538, which does the best polling data out there. At least it used to. And so, aside from that, she was doing better a week ago. And so she's starting to, the honeymoon is wearing off, and she's being defined. But the reason I say that I know she's going to lose is that it doesn't benefit them to constantly talk about how she's gaining on Trump and she's going to pass Trump and Trump's running scared. And they're talking her up all the time on these, you know, lamestream media shows. And why would you do that, right? If you're running for president or as a politician, you don't want to give your voters the idea that you have it in the bag. You don't want to get cocky. You don't want to get arrogant. You don't want your constituents and your voters to think, oh, I don't even have to bother to vote. He's going to be a shoo-in or she's going to be a shoo-in, right? I mean, that happened with Hillary Clinton. Now, part of it is maybe you want to dispirit and, you know, depress your opponent's voters so they're like, oh, he's going to lose anyway. I'm not going to vote for him. But the Trump voters are going to vote. Like, they're voting. And they don't believe in the polls and they don't believe in the media, so it doesn't help you to constantly be saying how great you're doing. And so the only reason that they're saying that she's doing great is they don't want to admit that she's going to lose. Like they want to make it sound like she's going to win, like they did with Hillary Clinton, and pretend she's going to win so that the people will go out and vote. I don't know what it is, right? I mean, I have no idea what the strategy is here because like I think when someone's going to be landslided and going to lose big, they just talk desperately like, oh my God, she's going to win, or, you know, we're really hopeful. They try to stay positive in the face of reality, right? And not that I'm saying I want Trump, because I don't. They're handpicking Trump, and you Trumpers should be scared as shit about that because they're handpicking him for a reason. I mean, as of right now, unless there's some October surprise, I don't think they get much out of a Kamala Harris presidency, but they get a lot out of Trump's. And they're not handpicking Trump so he's going to make America great again, because he can't. We're dead ass broke. There's only one solution: depopulation, and collapse the economy and redefine your life and your privileges. And they're going to be doing that under Trump. And he's going to be the fall guy, the patsy for them, like he was before with COVID. And if you don't see it, you don't see it. It's not my problem.
All right, back to the breaking news. You're looking at some live pictures.
Text supporters, Kamala Harris. Tim is a battle-tested leader with incredible track record.
Right now at Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's home there in Minnesota. Apparently it is a house used by the University of Minnesota, and the governor has been staying there while the governor's mansion, we're told, has been under renovations. And so
that's not a good sign.
You're looking at some pictures.
Do you have rats? Do you have rats in the government mansion?
Right now of that house, and we're waiting to see. You can see all those SUVs. That's usually a pretty good sign that something is afoot, and we're waiting to see if the Minnesota governor and the vice presidential nominee, if we can call him that at this point, comes out at any moment. So we're keeping an eye on all of that. But after weeks of speculation, Kamala Harris has picked her running mate. She texted her supporters. We should note in just the last several minutes that she has picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Let's bring in CNN senior political commentator Van Jones. Van, what do you think?
Hey, listen, man. This guy comes out of nowhere.
Comes out of nowhere.
Weeks ago, nobody even knew his name.
Yeah.
And he lit up the grassroots. He lit up the internet.
Yeah, I never heard of him. Like, this is like today is the first day I'm hearing him. I heard a lot about Josh Shapiro. I saw Josh Shapiro a lot. They wanted Josh Shapiro, but when your nickname is Genocide Josh, that kind of screws you over, right?
The first person to come out and define Donald Trump as weird.
Boom! That was crazy. Remember that? That was funny. He said Donald, he's weird.
Suddenly people had a way to talk about him. We were, he's a fascist, he's a dictator. We were actually giving him more power. This guy punctured the Donald Trump balloon and comes out of nowhere. The ultimate
He punctured his balloon.
Dark horse candidate. So
he's not a dark horse candidate. He's an old white guy.
It extends
from Minnesota.
It's the honeymoon. A lot of people are excited, but it's not all one way. You do have the other side of this thing, which is, first of all, what worries me is you see a lot of relief from the conservatives. They were scared of Josh Shapiro. They were scared of a Mark Kelly. They thought...
Yeah, okay, scared in the sense that they think they're shoo-ins for a big landslide, and they don't want to have something fuck it up, right? Like right now they're sitting pretty, and whenever you're sitting pretty as a politician, you start to worry, right? You know, they're always worried. They're control freaks.
That would help define Kamala more to the middle. You see a lot of rejoicing on the right. That's not good. Also, you've got some disquiet in the Jewish community. Some people had their hopes up. Maybe you're going to get another shot at a Jewish vice president. We haven't had that for 2 decades.
Yeah, you've lost the Jewish vote anyway because they love Trump, and Trump's going to give them everything, Israel, everything they want. And, you know, Wall Street is big on, I mean, there's a lot of things that Trump has going for him. You've lost the Jewish vote.
And now that gets pulled away. Is it just because he's a moderate, or is there some anti-Jewish bias here? So the party is still digesting this. I think if you're a Muslim or a young Arab or someone who's concerned about Gaza, it gives you a reason to stay excited about Kamala, because that was...
They're not excited about Kamala. They might think that Kamala's slightly better than Trump.
Going to be hard for the party to digest. So you've got a party now trying to figure out, is this good? Is this bad? What does it mean for the young people? They stay excited. But the most important thing I can say is, only in America can somebody who nobody literally heard of 2 weeks ago be on his way to being possibly the vice president of the United States.
It's the craziest thing I ever heard. Sarah Palin. He's Sarah Palin. Remember? Nobody heard of Sarah Palin. And there was unbelievable excitement about Sarah Palin. And then she scrapped the bag. Right? So there was Sarah Palin. Plus, he's an old white guy. Like, you're this excited about an old white guy, right? A moderate old white guy from Minnesota. You're that excited. Like, he's a safe pick, like I showed you before. But more importantly, like, she's just not electable. And he's not going to change that, right? The thing about Kamala Harris is, we'll go through this whole thing here. I'll show you a big segment of this thing. It's called Recode. Recode, this is a part of Vox, uncovers and explains how our digital world is changing. Lauren Powell, Lauren Powell Jobs is Steve Jobs' widow. She's here with Kamala. She's here with Kamala Harris. We'll see them in a moment. But Kamala Harris is just off-putting. You know, if you're going to be somebody who's going to break a barrier, like Barack Obama had charisma, and he had a likability factor. Now, as Republicans or whatever you might be, you're like, no, we hate him. Well, he was likable to moderates and to Democrats, right? Kamala Harris never was. The Democrats took a look at her and rejected her, right? She was up polling at 12%. They were pushing her. Then the Democrats got a good look at her, and only 1% of them were willing to vote for her in the primary, and she had to quit because she's not somebody they looked at as being a possible president. Now, because of their hatred towards Trump or whatever, they're rearranging reality, they might vote for her now just because, like, they're Democrats and this is their only choice. But, but that doesn't make her electable, right? Because she's just annoying. Like, she's just, and I'm not talking about her policies or what she believes or the fact that she's a Democrat or liberal. I'm talking about just who she is as a person, right? You're a co-parent. Like, that's obnoxious, right? Like, you didn't raise that girl. Like, she had just been, she's only been married to the guy for a little bit of time. So she got married about this time in 2014, right? So this was May 31st, 2017. So a little bit less than 3 years, a little bit over the 2 years, she'd been married. She didn't raise that girl. The girl was 15 when Kamala came into her life, right? Or 16 or whatever it was. And so, like, that's obnoxious to pretend like her saying that her and her husband, let's listen to that again, right? Now, what she's saying is fucked up, but like just the ways that she comes across. Like, if you were talking to this person at a party or somewhere, and she'd be over there in the corner, and like, I don't go to parties, but just whatever. Like, she'd be over in the corner being loud and laughing. She probably, I think she likes to drink or something. I think maybe she's on some sort of pain medication. Like, something's off with her where she doesn't have the ability to self-perceive. But if you talk to this person, you can say this about pretty much every politician, but she's one of the worst. You'd be looking for a way to get out of the conversation and walk away from them. She has like an energy that she gives off that repels you, right? Like, there's just something disquieting about her, something unlikable, something like ick, something that makes you feel like bad when you listen to her. Like, she whatever's going on internally, this is what I talk about in terms of the meditation that I do. That people have an energy that they exude, and you're around people. Some people, you're around them, you feel calm, you feel good. Some people make you laugh. Some people make you feel happy. There's positive people. And then there's people that just are repulsive energetically. Like, despite what they're saying and the words they're saying, they might totally agree with you. You just don't want to be around. You breathe. As soon as the person walks out of the room, you sigh. Like, you're like, oh my God, it's like something has been lifted from you. Like something, bad, like a splinter has just been taken out or something, right? Like, she's just like icky in that way. And the longer that she runs for president, the more people are going to realize this. And so they're not going to vote for her. They're not going to want her to win. And Donald Trump is, as sucky as he is, he's more likable than she is to lots of people. And it's unfortunate because, not that she would make a good president, but they're using Donald Trump to take down the rest, what's left of the country. Intellectual, these are the kind of way people talk. These are her people here. These are people who consider themselves intellectuals, consider themselves academics, right? People who work with smart people, educated people. And there's just a lot of pretentiousness and a lot of like, sitting in a coffee shop and pontificating about stuff that has no real practical value, right?
The years is we have accepted this premise that is a false premise that we are a divided country.
How'd that play out? She's a real Nostradamus. So think about what she's saying now, that you're fighting for the soul of the nation, and the Donald Trump voters and the MAGA Republicans are ruining the nation, all these things, right? And this is what she's talking about. The insurrection, all the things that, the so-called insurrection. I mean, this is what she's campaigning on, Joe Biden campaigning on, fighting for the soul of the nation, because you can't let the other side get a hold of it. So what she's saying here is a completely flip-flop from her other position. So this is the old Kamala, right? You're a completely different person in your beliefs about these things. But it's just the tone of her voice, everything else. It's not what she's saying, and what she's saying is effed up, because it's not like, actually, it's not what was, I mean, this was 2017, right after the Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton election. And people were like not accepting Donald Trump as their president. Celebrities were threatening to move out of the country. Shit like that was going on. And, it just got more and more divisive.
He's a funny guy. He's a great guy.
He's great.
Ostensibly, what would I have in common with him? What would he have in common with me? We get on.
Are you both Indian? Or are you both like men? Are you both our men? Like,
so
Tulsi Gabbard for locking up black people for using pot.
So what are you going to do about that?
Nobody else is laughing, right? She's giving you a mercy smile.
How are you going to, what did the Democrats do?
I think one thing is we just have to speak truth. We have to be
You got to speak truth. She's so good. She's just laughing like neither of these two people are laughing, right? Like she's laughing. The audience isn't laughing, right? She's the only one laughing. And it's not good to be the only one laughing, right? Unless you like laughing at everybody else. And, you're not like you can do it in a way that they're not going to try to kill you. But like she's saying this stuff and it's not funny. And she has that cackle. And this is weird, right? This is what, they call it Trump weird. But she just has this unlikable characteristic. And you can't do anything with that, right? I mean, there has to be some likability factor or just be neutral. Like you could be a neutral person where Joe Biden was maybe more of a neutral person. Of course, he was like, a walking corpse. But you can be neutral, but you can't be really unlikable. Like that's not what she's saying now, right? Completely changed her tune. But it's the unlikable thing. It's just something there. And I know about it because I watched the Democratic primary. She was the most unlikable candidate there. And it became very obvious when they pushed her up to 12 points and there she was on the rise and she had the backing of the establishment and she cratered because the Democratic voters said, we don't like her. We can't stand her. And they just got a good dose of her. That's happening now already. The more you hear her voice, the more you see her, the more she presents herself, the more the people just like that she's just off-putting. In a different way than Hillary Clinton, but the same factor. And that means people aren't going to embrace her when they already left Joe Biden behind. And getting Joe Biden, they wouldn't have to go after an old white guy if they were doing well, right? They wouldn't put an old white guy in as their vice president candidate if they were doing well. They could, if this whole message of multiculturalism and these things that they're pushing was resonating with the American voters, they wouldn't have to go to an old white guy for support, right? Okay, so this is Comedy Gold here. We'll wrap this video up here. Kamala looking very confident. Look at that, right? I mean, I think she's younger than me. I mean, it's just like there's some stuff going on there. But anyways, her political career could be 3 months from being over. Because, I don't know if you go back to being a senator after this, right? You've been a vice president. And, if you lose to Donald Trump, you're done. Like you don't get a second chance. You don't get a do-over. You don't probably even be I don't know what you would, your career is going in south after this. I mean, maybe you get some corporate job. I don't know if people, she's not really liked. She doesn't have a fan base. I mean, like she's not going to be homeless, but, she's going to be, she's going to be done after this, right? They'll disappear. Like what's happened to Sarah Palin, right? Like, is she on the national stage anymore? Is she, she had to quit being governor. I don't even know what's going on with her, right? Reality TV. What's left for you? Like, and so she's pretty close to being, and not that I'm glad for that, but I know what's going to happen when Trump gets elected again, and it's not good. But anyways, we can enjoy this part at least. Hey, who the F is this calling me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? This is completely unexpected. I just have to be sitting here with my phone by the window. I'm not ready for this at all. I don't know what's going to happen here. I have no idea what's happening.
Hey, this is Tim.
This is Tim. Hey, this is Tim. That's how I answer the phone. I don't have any kind of indication on this phone of who this could be. Like it didn't say, Kamala Harris is calling like it does for the rest of us. I don't have caller ID or anything. I don't have your number in my phone, so I don't know. It's a random number calling out of Washington, D.C. I wonder who this could be, and I wonder what this is about.
It's Kamala Harris. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
The big smile.
Listen, I want you to do this with me.
Wait a minute, Kamala. I'm a married man. What are you talking about? We all know about Kamala Kneepads Harris.
Let's do this together. Would you be my running mate and let's get this thing on the road?
Rudolph with your nose so bright, will you help me guide my sleigh tonight? This is like the goofiest thing ever,
I would be honored, Madam Vice President. The joy that
As long as I'm the president, you're the vice president.
you're bringing back to the country, the enthusiasm that's out there, it would be a privilege to take this with you across the country.
The only problem is I've just been diagnosed with Parkinson's. I'm not a big person I'm very casual. I'm right now basically working in my pajamas, and it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I don't own a suit, and I don't like ties and think they're stupid. And so I don't, when Fetterman was being criticized for not, I don't care about that, right? But here's this guy, he knows a call's coming, right? And he's wearing a camo hat because he's trying to be, middle of the road or wherever he is. Like he could have done better here.
Well, let me tell you, I have just the utmost respect for you. I have really enjoyed our work together.
Okay, what have you guys done together?
You understand our country.
He totally does. He gets it.
You have dedicated yourself.
This whole video is 1 minute and 6 seconds. We're only 39 seconds in, a little bit more than halfway. And I'm like, my God, when is this thing going to end? And I'm enjoying the comedy aspect of it. 1 minute and 6 seconds is a long time to listen to Kamala.
To our country in so many different, in beautiful ways. And we're going to do this. We're going to win. And
Okay, don't get too hopeful there, Kamala.
we're going to unify our country and remind everyone that we are fighting for the future for everyone.
Okay, you do tell him.
So let's get out there and get this done, okay?
Let's do it. Do the work in front of us. Let's win this thing.
Let's win this thing.
That's right. All
That's right.
Everybody, I'll see you soon. Take
Okay, pal.
care. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Harris Walz. He's got a small little name there. Looks weird. But how do the Republicans respond here? So remember Van Jones was saying that the Republicans breathed a sigh of relief because they were worried that they were going to pick more of a centrist, a middle-of-the-road person. Kamala caved, Trump and his allies cast the Walz pick as a liberal overload. It was more of a safe pick, right? And, this is not going to be about any of that because...
Obviously, the big news of the day is that Tim Walz has been nominated.
Why are you wearing eyeliner, bro? Why the fuck are you wearing eyeliner? So this is a guy, who's supposed to be ex-military, tough guy, pulled himself up born into difficult circumstances, wrote some book about it, and ended up being a Republican, icon or whatever it is, right? Didn't like Trump at first, but now is won over by the MAGA people. And the MAGA people are not people who are, these supposed to be these tough Republican, men's men, whatever it is, and aren't in favor of men wearing eyeliner, right? And yet he's doing it, and nobody's calling it out because it's really effed up. It's weird as F.
Nominated as the VP, or is now the presumptive.
You going to Rocky Horror Picture Show after this thing? What's this all about?
Nominee, I should say, for Kamala Harris. My view on it is it just highlights how radical Kamala Harris is. This is a person who listened to the Hamas wing of her own party and selecting a nominee. This is a guy who's proposed shipping more manufacturing.
Yeah, but dude, you're putting on eyeliner. And I always am amazed at eyeliner because, nobody likes something near their eye, right? And it's a weird thing that happens. I mean, even the fake eyelashes and all that stuff, but the eyeliner, just weird. He does this every day.
Jobs to China, who wants to make the American people more reliant on.
I said that how he looks sort of like a woman to man, like he was born a woman and transitioned, like there's something effeminate about him. I said that right off the bat when I first saw him, and just you can see it here, and they're just completely duping the Republicans.
Garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does. I think it's interesting, actually. They make an interesting tag team because...
Yeah, you got the eyeliner, and Trump has an imaginary bullet wound in his ear between the two of you guys.
Of course, Tim Walz allowed rioters to burn down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020, and then the few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail. So,
kaboom!
It is more instructive for what it says about Kamala Harris that she doesn't care about the border, she doesn't care about crime, she doesn't care about American energy, and most importantly, she doesn't care about the Americans who have been made to suffer under those policies.
So you're not a fan, is that what you're saying? You're not a fan, eyeliner boy? And so this is a really messed up, race. Okay, so it's Wednesday, August 7th. I'm going to get this video up today. I'm not sure I'm going to make it public till today or tomorrow. But I have some comments from the stuff about religion and Christianity and things. Of course I would, so I want to cover some of those comments. But this was the part you just saw came after this part here when I was recording the segments. But I got sent the clip of Kamala and her woke gaffe, and then I, found all this stuff, and then these other things came out. But let's get back to this part with Trump's.
She's a radical left person who destroyed San Francisco, and she'll destroy the country just like she did California and San Francisco.
They just, they're not syncing up. Forbes is just not doing a good job here.
She was the leader of that pack that destroyed San Francisco. It's not only Gavin Newsom.
Kaboom, Gavin Newsom.
He's another beauty. Oh, we're doing great.
I don't know if Trump actually just picked his own. That's a pretty good nickname, Gavin Newsom. I'm sure he's getting some support with his nickname game. But, this is the candidate. It used to be funny what he used to do. This is a little bit funny now. But this used to be great about Trump when he did stuff like this because it was so unpresidential. But now, after this fake thing he did with his ear and Operation Warp Speed, the last 4 years, he's just been a frickin' disgrace. Slovakian Olympic swimmer collapses after women's 200-meter individual medley. This is what I would have covered on my other channel, and I have a video up there that's unlisted. I'm just waiting for the opportunity to get it, to put it up because in terms of just too much content, right? And fighting against my own channel, my other channel here. Bulgarian fighter strokes controversy with gesture after loss to Olympian who failed gender test. So that happened. Google loses antitrust case over Google search.
Judge has just ruled against Google in a massive antitrust lawsuit. That suit involves its core business, online searches. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung is here to help unpack all of this. Brian, this is a big win for regulators, right? Because they have been
Brian Chung
trying to argue that there was a monopoly here at Google.
Yeah, and by the way, we're still poring over this 286-page document from the district.
Don't be evil.
of Columbia. Really, this is a massive antitrust ruling that the judge in this case is turning onto the Sherman Act. This is basically an antitrust law that we've heard in the context of a big landmark case against Microsoft in 2001, now being used against Google here. And this judge found that there were basically two areas where Google was basically engaged.
This is, we'll see.
Engaging in antitrust, search and text advertising, that they basically control the monopoly. They said it for the search engine. They were basically coercing companies into making Google the default search engine and not giving them much choice to go elsewhere simply because of the massive scale that they have on advertising dollars. And on text advertising, they pointed to a pretty jarring stat that in 2020, its market share in that market was 88%. So you have Amit Mehta, the judge, saying, quote, Google is a monopolist and has acted as one to maintain its monopoly. This is a huge win for the 38 states and territories that were on this suit. What happens next? We don't know. Could there be injunctions?
So, you know, this is going to hurt their, I mean, they've gamed the search engines, which I've talked about. You know, when you used to search for something truther related and anything, you know, but truther related particularly. And in the sidebar where they would recommend videos, I used to get truther stuff all the time, back when I watched truther stuff. So this is going back 10 years ago. And they promoted truther stuff. But more importantly, when you search for something, they give you what you searched for, right? And, you know, I've talked about this extensively. So now when you search for something, they say, F you, you don't want that, you want this. And they recommend something you don't want. So you search for truther, and I showed everybody when I made these original videos, when I had these talks with the bots, and I said these things to the bots as well, that when you search for something, it reveals, Google says, knows what you want because they spy on you, and they all know what you're looking for, but they don't give you what you're looking for, which is the opposite of how search engines supposed to work. And the other search engines actually aren't much better because they're getting a lot of their whatever they're getting from Google. And so you're not able to find things anymore, which means Google search and YouTube, which is also just a big search engine looking for videos and content, is, you know, doing the same thing. And they recommend crap like CNN and MSNBC when you want truther stuff. Or if you search truther or conspiracy theory, it's stuff debunking it. You can't find it anymore, right? You guys understand this because you've experienced it.
Injunctions? Could there be criminal fines potentially? We'll have to see. But the stock is down almost 4.5% on a day that's already been pretty bad for Wall Street.
We're talking at the top of the hour about how bad this day is already in the stock market. So essentially, this means the judge is saying Google went to other companies, like other phone companies, and made deals that they were going to use the Google search.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, when you think about on all the devices that we have, if you're on a Mac, if you're on a browser, if you're, I mean, it's the software as well. In many cases, Google is the default browser. They're alleging,
you know, this is exactly what Microsoft did with their browser, right?
That the way that they made themselves a default browser through some of these deals and agreements is antitrust.
And has Google said anything to this point?
Google has not responded. We did reach out to a request for comment. They haven't said anything so
yeah, because they've been caught being evil, doing the same shit Microsoft did
far, but we'll have to see, and we'll be keeping our ear to.
Is it too soon to ask if this changes how we? I mean, we use Google as a verb, Brian. Is it going to change how we search?
Well, I mean, you know, you would imagine that Google's defense of this would be, well, maybe our market share is so large because we're just the best search engine and we offer the best text ads
and
that are out there.
And they have argued that in court.
And they have argued that, but
your search engine sucks, Google. You suck. Like, your search engine sucks. I try to use other search engines, and the results are very similar because Google is, you know, the other search engines are basing their shit off of Google, and so they've done the opposite of what a search engine's supposed to do, and not help you find what you're looking for. And these bots and these things are, you know, even worse, right? And so when you search for something truth related, and, you know, so many people want truther videos, at least 1/3 of the population wants some form of alternative media, and Google's saying, fuck you, you can't have that. We know what you're looking for. We're not giving it to you because we know what's better for you than you do. Like, you're not my dad, Google. That's what I said in the video. You're not my father. You're not my freaking parents. You're not my, you know, God or whatever it is. You're not my elder. You're not my teacher. You're a fucking search engine. I'm looking for something. I want to find what I'm looking for, not what you think I'm looking for or what you wish I was looking for, right? Like, it's arrogant and it's, you know, you suck and it's evil, right?
But again, this judge didn't seem to agree with that. The real big question here, Kate, is what can be done about this, right? Google is already a massive company among other tech giants. What can be done here? We don't know. We'll have to.
Yeah, they'll give them like a nominal fine, and they'll keep on doing this stuff just like everybody else.
After I liberate the Jewish people, I will go to Africa to help liberate the black people.
What did he say?
Video footage of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu talking about Israel's goals for Africa in a press conference in Uganda has many on the continent speculating what those plans and goals are.
Yeah, they're gonna try to monetize Africa. Like, he ain't gonna help you. Just like he's liberating the Palestinian people.
Very, very strange tomfoolery. Like, do you know about this new COVID?
Yes, I do. What new COVID?
There's a new COVID someone that works for me just had, and they were kept in hospital in a plastic fucking room with the zipped up door, and the director of the hospital came in and said, yes, you have this new strain of COVID. We don't understand it yet, and it's giving people strep. It's got like strep attached to it and strep throat. So it and so she had.
Okay, so somebody, somebody in my life, got COVID, and my wife's family, and got strep throat, and I was saying this strep throat seems like it has COVID, like it just wouldn't go away. It lasted for like 3 weeks. This is about a month or so ago, and so hopefully my wife and I have immunity to it now. Maybe from, whatever. Like I've been taking all these supplements and I'm in better physical shape. But I was saying this doesn't seem like normal strep throat, right? And it turns out now, like I'm like, maybe they have some kind of new COVID as, part of this COVID debacle that has strep related to it. And, it will probably kill a lot of older people because it's a nasty version of strep throat, right? And we'll see what happens. But again, I don't know. This is the Osbournes, but I know this to be true to some extent because I had these very thoughts when I was like, when someone gets strep throat for like 3 weeks, it really kicks their ass. You're like, well, that seems a little bit extensive, a little bit, especially with all the COVID's just it's a whole thing it's a biological weapon that seems to be, mutating at a very fast rate. And I think their goal is to wipe out as many old people as possible. That didn't work with the first COVID, but now we'll see. So then there's this. This is a girl, I believe, in Thailand. And the monkeys are so bad, she's armed herself so she could get her lunch. They won't take her lunch, right? Like this kind of stuff I used to cover, animals. I realize people are bonus holes. This girl's not being a bonus hole here. She's showing up as she's got this thing. I don't believe this is a real, this thing's an airsoft, so it's some kind of pellet gun or something. But either way, monkeys beware. Okay, let's get into the comments here. So, I made a video entitled America Needs to Declare Bankruptcy, Old Kamala Vids, Why Jojo Magoo, What is Jojo Magoo up to? Jojo Magoo sightings. And I talked about Christianity and religion and things in ways probably most of you haven't heard before, at least some of it, right? And I got a number of comments, not that many, because, this doesn't help my channel, like saying things that challenge people's religious beliefs and going against Donald Trump and those people. I mean, there's a massive Christian and right-wing Donald Trump contingent out there, right, where I could tap into them if I just told them what they wanted to hear. But that's not what I do here, right? So people should at least appreciate that. But this person says, sorry, but all you did was take Jesus' teachings and then try to change something and claim it as your own. You all bite from Jesus' apple and prosper from his sacrifice, yet you try to claim all his glory. Now that's not anything resembling. Like, what are you listening to? You know, like it's all kind of, you know, the stuff that I say here. That's my own whatever it is you know is original to what I say, but a lot of it is based in the Sajmark teachings and system. A lot of my spiritual stuff, certainly all my spiritual stuff, has its roots in that, and my training and understanding and the teachings and anything that I get it from the etheric aspect of meditation, and that's like flowing through me is a part of that. So that's where my stuff is sourced, right, which I give credit to. But in terms of him saying this, you know, Jesus went to India. There's an overwhelming amount of evidence, and you know, there's just, you know, that just happened, right? So there's this thing called the unknown Jesus years, called the silent years or lost years or missing years. Generally refers to the period of Jesus' life between his childhood and the beginning of his ministry. A period not described in the New Testament. So in the Bible, there is a segment of Jesus' life. They talk about his childhood, and there's stories from his childhood. And then at some point he disappeared. You know, he went somewhere because he went on a journey. I mean, why would they not have a consistent story of his life? Did Jesus not talk about his years from his childhood? This is from his being 12 to 29. So this is a significant time period, right? 29 is when I started the Sajmark meditation, which is kind of interesting. But he, you know, which is a big thing. When you turn 28, it's a whole different phase in your life. It's your, you know, every 7 years your body renews itself. It's also the return of Saturn. You know, the planet Saturn goes around as the orbit of, you know, whatever that is every 7 years. And so, but anyways, you know, why would they leave that out? Do you think Jesus didn't talk to his disciples about what happened between the time he was 12 and 29? He was receiving spiritual training from somewhere. Jesus had spiritual training. He just didn't get it through his inner communing with God. Everybody has spiritual training. Every saint, every spiritual person. You know, you're a young person and you're a young dope. Like everyone's a young dope at some point. You know, you're just dopey when you're young. And you need training. And some of that training has to come through a person, like some sort of spiritual, you know, guru and these people. Some, you know, spiritual saint or something, right? You need a coach. You need spiritual training. Like spirituality, the internal world, the internal universe, and navigating your internal universe, it's the most vast, you know, again, it happens on an etheric level. And it's filled with all kinds of different things that you can get caught up in. There's pleasure centers. There's, you know, centers that make you feel good, your spiritual points in your system, that when it's easy to get stuck there, right? Because you just feel happy, you feel good, you feel content. It's easy to get stuck in a spiritual, you know, sort of, you know, like a mirage or an oasis in your internal system. And then there's other things to navigate through that you don't have the really, I mean, your brain is part of it, but your mind is part of it, but your senses and other things and the material reality is easy to navigate through. Like, you know, going on a trip, right? You've got to get from one point to another. But going in your internal world is much more difficult to navigate because it's, you know, it's etheric, right? It's energetic. And so you need external teaching. You need external guide, gurus. And Jesus had that. Like Jesus learned some form of yoga when he was in India, and he came back and taught it to people. And I'm sure that Jesus gave credit to where credit was due. But what would the Christian religion look like if Jesus said that he went to India for training, that he got spiritual training from India? Would it look like, you know, and what would it do to this story of him being the only son of God and the only way to get to heaven was through him? And so they edited that out. Jesus, you know, was open about it. You know, they did a lot of editing to Jesus's life. They edited out 17 years of his life, right? You know, they took out 17 years of his life, just disappeared. Jesus went somewhere and did something. So from the time he was 12 to the time he was 29, something happened where he became a spiritual guide and guru and a saint. and he came back to these people in this area, like he disappeared or wherever it was, and it was India, like it just was. And so they're not that far apart. At least it's a doable journey. It's said the 3 wise men who came to Jesus when he was a baby were from India, and that he went there to, you know, whatever. There was some connection there, right? So whatever it is. But India is just a great place for spiritual people. I've said this before. You know, I have my issues with India. I didn't really like it at first when I first went there. You know, it's kind of a pit materially. I mean, I can't say I disliked it, but it was uncomfortable. But as, you know, that one time I spent 3 years there, the second to last time I went there, I just really loved India. Like, I just loved it. And I saw the benefit of it. But mostly because I was there at the ashram areas to do a Saj Marg, where the meditations are great and the energy is great. But it's just a place with the longest history of relationship to divinity. And it's, you know, there's no place like it. And again, it's a material pit, and there's lots of problems with India, the corruption and the culture. I mean, there's, you know, it's a mess right now. But it's like bones. It's the fabric of its, you know, its essence is really conducive to peace. And, you know, people have just gone there and had spiritual experiences that they haven't had other places. And so a lot of saints, in fact, all spiritual people have some connection with that part of the world. And Jesus was one of them. So he was trained by people, but they edited that out because they didn't want you doing yoga, right? But what Jesus teaches is a form of yoga that exists in, you know, ancient India. And so it isn't original to him, and I'm sure he didn't claim it was original to him, but the people who wanted to make him God's only son and make that path the only path changed it. It edited it. So this person's comment is like completely wrong and kind of silly. The next person says, Simone Biles is a biological dude like Mike. Fits right in the Olympics. Well, she's like 5'2", you know. My channel originally popped. I'm going to go back to the Jesus comments in a moment. But my channel originally popped because of the video I did about Michelle Obama possibly being a dude. I watched the video of people presenting, you know, the evidence, and I thought it was kind of goofy. So I decided to look into it myself, and I'm like, you know, I wasn't making those kind of videos then. But after I did my own research on it, I'm like, well, I have enough information here to make a video. So I made a video, and the thing got 2 million views, like it went viral. And that's how my channel took off originally, right? And so I was one of the first people that, and then I had the second follow-up video where I showed that A-list actors all had to put on dresses. Like all of them. Like pretty much every A-list actor, because Dave Chappelle said that was just black actors, but it was really all these A-list actors had to put on a dress. They got John Wayne. Like I mean, it was amazing how many of these guys had to do that, right? It was like a rite of passage. And so I did a whole bunch of stuff that's now become the T investigation stuff. You know, it's a dude. But at some point, the QBs got a hold of it, and it went south, and now it's just a mess. And there's, you know, possibly truth in it, and I make jokes about it. I keep it light. And, of course, there's this movement. But the QBs and the right-wing truthers wrecked it. And, you know, now it's just like everybody's a dude, and you just, like, with no evidence. There's a guy who made content. He'd go, it's a man, it's a dude, it's a man. Like, that's what he would do, like his whole videos. No, show no evidence, right? The whole Isaac Cappy thing, he was another one. You know, these are poor quality videos that hurt the truth community. You got to realize when people are hurting your case or, you know, making a case, right? And it's, or whether something's going to be used against you as a community or as an individual. And that stuff is just, it's jumped the shark. You wrecked it. You know, you wrecked it with your stupidity. And it happens all the time where there's legitimate questions being asked and good quality videos, either investigative, journalistic type things or, you know, just insightful people. But people who are subtle and, you know, have some humility and realize that it's not black and white. It's impossible to prove a lot of these things. And so when you just announce Simone Biles as a man, you know, it's possible, but very unlikely because she's like 5'2". And, you know, I mean, she could be genetically modified. I talked about that. Like Michael Phelps was built as the perfect swimmer, almost like, he had been genetically modified. His body he's got a weird body type. You know, long torso, short legs, giant feet and hands, and then his his body produces half the lactic acid, so he can go farther when he swims without having that reaction of his, you know, when you have a lactic acid buildup. I mean, he has half of that. Like, why? How is that even possible with his other attributes, right? And so, yeah, maybe he's a genetically modified person. We don't know. Like, you know, who's to say? You know, like the evidence is there. It's a possibility because it's just, you know, he's an anomaly. And that technology exists. And so, yeah, is it a slam dunk? No. Like, don't announce it like it's reality just because you think so. And that's always hurt people. That's people in the truth community. Here's another one that's just like that. This is a wonderful comment. I got to make it bigger here. So, bankruptcy, America's sugar bankruptcy, old Kamala videos, what is JoJo Magoo up to? And so, this person writes this. All the green screen evidence, all the times people are filming Biden up close, it looks like a rubber mask. And they can add in all the videos with weird after effects and shadows that look off. Then add in the videos where he waits till the world media is pointing a camera at him and he starts sniffing everyone around him. Then you add in the fact that it's going on for years and you still think Biden's a real dude. Ha ha, I did videos about him wearing a mask years ago. I'm banned off this site, but I can still use YouTube, but I choose not to. Damn. What's the name of that video I did? I can't think of it right now, but it's on BitChute. Real Joe Biden is probably dead years. FF's last time I see him was like 6'2". The dude is growing. You know, that's possible. It could be wearing a mask, but why would they do that? Like, the thing is, why would they make him senile and have Parkinson's? Like, why would they do that? Why would they have it be this way? Like, why would they get him to leave this way? Like, they're getting something out of a person, right? The person is an asset. Trump is an asset. Kamala is an asset. Biden's an asset. So they're getting something out of it. And it's all a show for, you know, people, like for mostly the sheeple, what I call the show, right? And so they have these characters. They can replace the character any time. Like, one thing that we know that nobody's indispensable. Trump is kind of indispensable, but he's going to be replaced at some point. But they've put so much into Trump and building the universe, you know, the world, America universe around, like the Marvel universe. They've built the political universe around Trump and pop culture universe and everything else, right? Trump is kind of essential right now to their worldview and all these things, right? But at some point they have to replace Trump, and it might be soon. Like, if Trump loses, he's done. He'll leave maybe they'll find a way to keep him going, but, you know, he's old and, you know, whatever. But if he wins presidency, there'll be whatever amount of time that they run his character arc. And then that's it. Like, after that, he'll be gone. And whatever the movement is, whatever's happening, I think there'll be significant damage to everything by then that people won't even be concerned about him as much, right? But in terms of Joe Biden, they didn't need to have the guy in the beginning. The guy they don't need a guy in a mask because Joe Biden gives them everything that they could possibly want. Joe Biden didn't deny them anything. Joe Biden would do anything to be president, and he would give the powers that be, you know, he would say and do anything they told him to say and do. He's completely compromised with his son and his shady business dealings and everything. They own Joe Biden. That's one of the reasons that, you know, they pushed him out there. He was like a complete muppet. Like, he was a complete, you know, owned Weekend at Bernie's type of situation. And he was old and, you know, whatever. And so if he died, why would they have him have Parkinson's and age him out? Like, it's silly. It's like a stupid, you know, like it doesn't fit with the way they're using him. Why would they age him out and go with Kamala? And why would they give Trump the fake shooting thing? You know, why would they promote Trump? Like, Trump is almost a shoo-in at this point. Like, right now he's a shoo-in, unless they change the narrative at the end. But I don't see them wanting Kamala because Kamala doesn't give them what they want, right? Kamala would just provoke the right, you know, a little bit more, and then they'd just do whatever. You know, she's so incompetent, she's so unlikable that maybe, I don't know, there's some value to her being. We'll see what happens. Like, we'll see what they're, and maybe this is it's still in flux, but it seems like right now, after so-called persecuting Trump for prosecuting and persecuting him for the last 4 years, he's got a clean bill of health. Like, he's now got immunity, and he's got this story of being attacked, and he's got all these things, right? He's got the bogus, the bad economy, and he's got immigration to run on. That Kamala is still the whole part of the Biden administration. And so, they don't need to kill people off and replace them with a double. They don't need to do that. Like, maybe for a short period of time, sure. Like, it isn't like they wouldn't do that, but why would they do that when they don't have to? They can just replace it with another shill. Like, you don't think there's an endless row of shills they could use, and assets and crisis act, whatever you want to call them. They don't have an endless supply of people who are willing to, play a part in this thing. Of course they do. Like, they don't need to, put a mask on some guy and say, well, you better act like you got Parkinson's because Joe Biden did. Like, it's just stupid, right? Like, it's silly, and it's not a slam dunk the way you're saying it is. Like, you see, like, all this, oh, you don't know it's not the real Biden. Well, why would they be doing them like this, right? Why would they have that be his character arc? They don't want people in the country to lose faith in the American system, where they had a senile guy. That's why they're not covering the fact that he had Parkinson's and he's had brain cognitive issues for the past 4 years. Like, you think having cognitive issues is something that they want? Like, they could, that's some kind of it's a psyop to have him have cognitive issues. That just has people lose faith in the American political system. And they start realizing voting's a joke. Because, they can have because the presidency is a joke. If you're going to have a senile guy be president for the last 4 years, then you don't need to vote because the president isn't real, right? So this is a wonderful comment here. The person says, so Paul, which God are you connecting to? And this is the main comment I wanted to get to, because the idea of God, I'm watching this show, my wife and I are watching this show called The Winter King, which is just another adaptation of King Arthur, and they just have changed the story around a little bit, same characters, but it's about the Excalibur, the King Arthur story and all these things, right? And I had watched this show called The Vikings, and both deal with the pagans, and I talked about how the pagans weren't evil. Like, they had their own, it's the Native Americans. There was this druidic, nature kind of worship. It's based in the woman type of worship, right? Like, this type of understanding of divinity. And the pagans and these druids, they worshipped multiple gods or whatever. They had these different gods, right? We've seen that in various traditions. Polytheism. And Christianity, which had monotheism, which was the idea of Jesus as God. Really, it's not even really monotheism, because they have the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost, and those are three different gods. And people pray to the different saints in Christianity. Like, there's a saint that's in charge of, like, Saint Christopher is in charge of, travel or whatever it is. Like, I think it is, like, there's a prayer to Saint Christopher, be with me on my way all the way. Some, these various saints that were responsible for, various things, right? They're associated with various things. So it's really not monotheism, right? But in these two shows, and maybe there's something else I saw, they cover this time period where there was the pagans and there were the Christians, and the Christians were overwhelming the pagans, that the Christianity was coming in. And a lot of it had to do with the kingdoms and the kings seeing that they could control the people better with Christianity. And they started to believe that Jesus was more powerful than the pagan gods that they were praying to. Because mostly they were praying to these gods for victory and these types of things. It's not true spiritual worship, right? But there's a scene from The Winter King. It's kind of a weird show. I liked it and didn't like it. It's an interesting take on it. They keep on remaking these things, right? The story of King Arthur keeps on being remade, right? These stories. I mean, like how many Holocaust movies or movies about Nazis are there? There's like 2 or 3 a year. And they keep on retelling these things. Like there's a time where there was like 20 Vietnam movies coming out every year for a period of time, right? Where they go through a historical period and they cover these things over and over again. And I mean, the bottom line is that the English kings were robber barons, and England has had a horrible history of abuse and colonization that comes from these kings and the queen and all the demonic stuff that goes with it, right? And they try to make these people heroes and all these things. But anyways, there's a scene from the movie where the people were mostly pagan, were talking about a priest who had just been killed. And they said, his God, they don't do anything with the body. Like, the pagans would do things with the body, but this guy would just go to heaven because that's what he believed, right? And I found that storyline interesting because that's what people think. Like, if you worship something, that's your God, and you get whatever is promised you in your religion, and that's just stupid, right? Like if you have these, multiple gods, and you have what happens to you in the afterlife, that's what's going to happen to you in the afterlife, right? And that the Christians are all going to heaven, and the other religions are all going to do what they think they're going to do. And that's non-binding. The bullshit that you were sold here on planet Earth has no bearing about what happens after you die. Your soul is in a region in the etheric world. Your soul that you have now in your body exists somewhere in the etheric world. And if you make strides on your spiritual journey, it will go to a higher place. It'll go to a more refined place, and you'll get closer and closer to God. And your understanding of God will be at a higher level. And really the difference between people is their understanding of God in reality. Like there's people who are crazy people, there are people who are very remedial, and people might look the same. Like you might look similar to other people, but what's going on in the inside in terms of your connection to divinity and your understanding of divinity, and not through your mind as much as your heart. Like you'll never know God mentally. God is beyond our mental comprehension. When people try to explain God mentally and verbally, it's just always going to fall short. God is so vast. There's, think about all the information that's available on planet Earth, like certainly now with the computers. And a human being couldn't hold all that information in their memory. A human being couldn't know everything there is to know about planet Earth. They couldn't even know everything there is to know about the region they live in. Every animal, every insect, every tree, everything. Like just in a 5-mile radius. Your mind couldn't memorize every blade of grass, like it's just so vast. Every grain of sand on the beach. And so a human's capacity to know something that's so vast, in terms of the internal universe being bigger than the external universe in terms of knowledge and experience and, just in the divinity that's within all of it, right? And so you'll never know God, but you can feel God's love through your heart, and that's, your understanding of God grows. And so this idea that there's these various gods and, the God of rain, and there's spirit, there's a spirit behind everything. Is there a Thor? Well, there's, the God of thunder. Well, there is a saint, usually a soul that either etheric or somebody in a living, human form that is in charge of the weather. Like some person out there is in charge of the weather globally or whatever it is, right? Like just that their soul is monitoring that. There's a soul and spirit for everything. And so, yeah, the polytheism, there's some case to be made, but people's understanding of it is limited, and they always sell you a bunch of bullshit so they can control you. But is there a God sitting up in heaven somewhere? No, that doesn't exist. Like a person sitting on a throne as a king, because that's the way they were putting it, because a king was the greatest thing that people knew, right? Kings were the greatest people. They were the bigger than celebrities and all these things, right? And that was before Jesus came in. And, but what did they sell those people? What did those people think as being great? Well, a king. A king is the most powerful person. A king was a godlike person. And so when they sold people the God of that time in ancient Israel and then in Europe, being a king was like that. Well, that was it. Like that was the shit, right? And so God is like a king. God's sitting in heaven like a king on a throne, because that's what people knew. That was what those dumbasses knew as being evolved and powerful. Oh, what is God like? God's like the greatest king. Oh my God, he's bigger than our king. Yeah, he's even bigger than your king. So that was what they sold people as God. That some judgmental, narcissistic prick like a king was sitting on a throne and judging people. That's why God is presented in such a remedial way in the Old Testament, in the Jewish Bible. And people who worship God in that way are scared of the king, because the king's a prick. The kings were always pricks. The kings were often, moody and, narcissistic. And I mean, they had these qualities that the God that they worship has, as being some person that could turn on you any second and punish you, and was wrathful, and was always creating war and always wanting more, and always having a big ego. You had to kiss his ring and stroke his ego and these things. And that's how the God that you worship. So you're so far away from understanding what God really is, because God is without a mind, without an ego. And so this person is trying to mock me. Let me see if I find this comment again. This person's trying to mock me, right? Paul, which God are you connecting to? Because of their limited dumbass view of God, right? They think they're getting me. Like you're a dumbass who isn't willing to expand your understanding of the divinity that's all around you and within you, right? And so, we're always learning about God, like when we're in our material bodies or as a soul, the ways of God. And if you're not moving forward in your understanding and expanding your consciousness, and you're just buying into some, religious bullshit that has been sold to you to control you, well, you're not doing what you're supposed to do here on planet Earth. You're having a failed life. And you're using, like this person's like, which God are you worshiping, Paul? My understanding and relationship with God is always growing. And so it isn't which God, it's the God. Like you're not worshiping the God. You're worshiping something that religious people have told you is God. Your religion has told you is God. And that's something that's horrible. It's good maybe when you're a kid because you're simple and you're just learning about the world. But at some point you have to do what Jesus did and transcend your religion and go beyond your religious concepts and have an internal relationship with God. And those are the only success stories in material life. If people can be the most successful material people, have all kinds of success and accomplishments and wealth. And if they don't make that jump from their limited God of their religion and the divinity that sits within them, and start having a relationship with God and moving towards a better understanding of God, both in terms of your intellectual understanding, but really between your heart and your ability to feel God's love and feel the energy that's God and allow God to flow through you and all these things. If you're not doing that, you've failed. Like you've failed, your life sucks. You can be the greatest person in the world, it's still a failure. Because, just getting on the spiritual path is the beginning of what you're supposed to be doing in the first place, right? And then, having your soul continuously find that essence, that desire, that craving within you to learn more about God in life after life. Because people have great spiritual lives and they reincarnate and they don't get back to it, right? That's one of the problems, is that, soul it's not guaranteed that you're going to have this opportunity again. And like I said, the world's full of dumbasses. And I don't mean like just intellectually stupid. I mean people who, the craving's there and everyone has it in them, but they just don't see it or they don't cultivate it. And, it could have been me, like I could have missed out on. I mean, it was just this, great moment that I have starting the Sajmark system, where I had these amazing first 3 introductory sittings. And I started doing this meditation. It was a life transforming, it was like I hit the lotto of spirituality. But what if I didn't? What if it wasn't like I didn't have those experiences and I didn't do, so I mean, I'm very appreciative of that and realizing that, it can go any type of way for you, right? But I think maybe I did enough in a previous existence to justify whatever, gifts that I've gotten, whatever it might be. And so how do you move that forward? How do you keep that going? And it's been a struggle for me because of the Sage Mark system becoming the heartfulness cult and, all the things I've talked about. But, it's just made me appreciate it more. That's why we say be grateful. And so for those people who can become a spiritual person, we do the gratefulness meditation. There's people who are, I'm actually going to do another voiceover, so I want to wrap this one up here. But I want to talk about in a video I'm going to put up on the Gratefulness Meditation channel. It'll be part of my Journey series about, people. One person talks about sleeping and meditation, and I want to address that. Another person talks about celebrating Kamish's birthday, even though it's not his, not to celebrate him, and I want to talk about that in a separate video. But there are people who are benefiting from this, small number, but it's still, it's still something, right? Because it's, the system works and people can connect to God within them. But once you start doing that, you're just in the beginning of your journey. Like, you haven't made it. Like, people always think they've made it. Like, I get it. Like, no, now I understand. No, it's just a constant journey. Like, you got to humble yourself and realize that you're never going to be a knower in some way where, there isn't some way that there's something more to learn or some, different, higher level than you're on now. Like, it's always a constant journey back to the source. The ways of God are infinite, and your understanding and your experience of it are, limited. But it's just as long as you're moving forward and you're deepening your understanding, you're doing what's right. And very few people are doing that. And so, like, this person who's mocking me, like, doesn't realize that, like, they're the fool, right? Like, you've bought into some bullshit thing and you're clinging on to it. Like, Charlton Heston was clinging on to his gun with his cold dead hands, right? And, for what? Like, just so you could feel secure or something? But anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.